Hello and welcome. My name is Tom Hudash from TNT Custom Paint. Today we're going to go over a bunch of different techniques to do some holiday artwork for the house. We do some gold leaf, we do some silver leaf, lettering, scrolling, airbrushing, cartooning. We're going to go over everything with this video, so I know it's a lot to take in. If you have any questions, throw it down in the comment section and we will get you all sorted out. I hope you really enjoyed this video because I enjoyed making it. Have a good one. Cheers. Alright, so first things first, we have a little bit of white paint in the airbrush. Reduced 1 part paint to probably 3 parts reducer, somewhere around there. I'm just looking for a way to road map the design here. Just an Iwata, running at about 20 pounds. And after I get that, I'm just gonna make some stars in the background. I'm literally taking a piece of wood and running that along the tip of my airbrush, and it spits paint out all over the place. Super easy way to make some stars. Now I'm just highlighting a couple stars and building up that background to create some interest and jumping right into the details after that. Really the basic thing to start with when you're doing a panel like this is not wasting too much time on all your block-ins and your details. Get the shades in there, get the fades in there, block in your colors, and get everything ready for the detail work. You don't want to spend too much time doing white detail because you're just going to come back in with black anyways, and then you're going to highlight it with white anyways after you do your colors. So I'm just kind of blocking everything in, doing all these little ribbons. This part kind of takes the longest time because with these little boxes and things like that, it's a little detailed, so you don't want to get too sloppy with the detail on stuff like this, or you're just going to get lost. Blocking in, blocking in, blocking in. Working that trigger back and forth, keeping the air on all the time, and bumping that trigger back and forth. If you work the air on and off while you're pulling the trigger back, you're going to start getting a lot of spitting and a lot of blotching and a lot of inconsistent lines. So work on keeping that air on and just bumping the trigger back and forth. The trigger control is #1 with airbrushing. So if you're starting out, trigger control is #1. I can't stress that enough. You don't have to be airbrushing to practice trigger control. You can have the airbrush off of, disconnected from the hose. You could be sitting on the couch, watch TV, and just keep bumping your trigger back and forth with your finger. That muscle memory is what's really going to help propel you forward faster. It took me a little while to figure out that trigger control trick where I always thought, okay, to practice I have to be airbrushing something. No, you don't need to be airbrushing something. All you have to do is work on that trigger control. Bumping, bumping, bumping the trigger back and forth. And let's move to our black. So see how when I said you don't really have to worry too much about your detail with your white? Well, this is why. I'm going back in, I'm kind of hardlining the outlines for the cartoon. And if I was going to go get super detailed with the white, then you're just going to kind of waste time. So when something like this, or time is money, you don't want to take unnecessary time out of your budget. So I'm just working the trigger, continuing on with the black. Also, the black here is an over-reduced black. It's 1 part black to 3 parts reducer with just a drop or two of a clear base. I do like to have a little bit of transparency. I don't want just straight black out of the gun because it does cover really fast, and when it covers too fast, if you make a mistake, you have a black line. So you got to be real careful. I do like having a little bit of transparency in my black. And this is the early generation Iwata Micron. Again, spraying at about 20 pounds. If you like to have a thicker paint, then you can bump up the air pressure a little bit just to make sure that you get some type of flow out of the gun. I like to have my paint a little thinner and having thinner paint, you can have it a little bit more reduced. So that's just kind of the way I like to roll with, especially my black. So I'm just punching in black, get some definition. And this is about a 30-minute video here, so if you want to just sit tight and grab a soda.
Yeah, you did. So bad at lying.
I wanted the first video to be a bit of a long one so we can cover many different things, and we get this first banger under our belt here and learn a lot real quick. So I'm just going to sit back and enjoy for a second. See how I didn't waste too much time on those ribbons and on the boxes? We have the white blocked in,
What do you have?
and then we just go around it with our black and turn it into a cartoon. So see how this is the white, and going back in with the white to highlight a couple areas. It really kind of adds that 3D or that volume to certain areas that you're trying to make stand out. Another thing to mention, if you want to get detailed, you have to bring the airbrush close to the panel. And the closer you get to the panel, the faster the paint hits the panel. It doesn't have enough time to fan out and get foggy. So if you want a foggy kind of blow in color, you kind of go far off the panel and the fan of the paint gets wider as it goes. So if you get real close, it stays real narrow. If you back off of it, the fan kind of starts to widen out and you can kind of get a little bit more of a fog or a little bit more of a shade. There's a big difference between, shading and line work. The shading, you have to stay back a little bit. The line work, you got to get close. It's really hard to shade when you're super close to the panel because there's just not a lot of volume coming out of the airbrush at that moment with that distance from the panel. All right, next let's get into some candy caning, I guess we can call it. So I'm just taking 2-inch tape here. I'm taping off the entire thing. And this is after we did the white block in, the black detailing, and the white highlights. So taping off. I'm doing overlaps. I'm making sure that I don't have any gaps between my tape, because then when we start doing colors and things like that, any gap in the tape you'll get a blow by. And I'm doing this right over black base coat, so any blow by, it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt to remove. So we have to just kind of take a minute, make sure everything's covered up and safe, and you won't get any overspray. I forgot up in this little corner here that right there, I need that for the end of this candy cane. So again, I'm just sketching it out. Then I have my cutout from the Santa. I'm just going to take a little bit of color and I'm going to blow in over that so I know where he is. So when I go and I cut this candy cane out, I can cut around Santa's foot and the chimney and everything and know where he is. So that's a quick little trick for you to reference where your image was prior to doing a background with accuracy. Just take the same pattern that you had before, or the same image that you had before, blow a little color over it, and you got yourself a map of where everything's at, so you don't screw that up. The worst thing to do is to cut through something that you thought you had room to cut around or something, and then you cut right through something, and now you got this big blade mark or cut mark through something like a foot, and then you got to try to figure out how to fix that, which is part of the game of paint, I suppose. But so I'm using a brand new blade. Super important to always use a brand new blade, because a brand new blade, you don't need to cut with pressure with the brand new blade. You can just kind of score the tape and it comes right up. Almost comes right up. Yeah, right up. All right, I'm just penciling in the candy cane, the white and the red. If you can see my marks up there on the top, and see how my airbrush is far off the panel, and see how it's kind of foggy and it's covering faster. I'm speeding this up a little bit here. I'm trying to get through this video for you, but I do also want to give you guys a bunch of details so you can do something like this for yourself. This was actually created to be a door hanger for the holidays. The other side of this is a fall scene. So you got a fall scene on one side, you flip it over, you got the winter scene, bing bang boom. You don't have to keep taking decorations up and down all the time. So again, notice how with my freehand shield, whoops, that's a bad camera angle. Let's move down a little bit here in a second. Taking the freehand shield and my red, and I'm staying off the panel, and I'm just fogging in that red. See how nice and even that covers? Super simple, super fast, all distance control from the panel, and it really makes a difference between a shade and a line. I do like to say that there's no lines in airbrushing. It's all fades and shades, it's all values. So when you're watching these videos, notice how I'm going back and forth and building on each line and creating a value or creating a line with values. I know t-shirt art and things like that, which is amazing to me. It's very line based, but the more detailed you get, the more you're going to see and learn that you're going to get away from those lines, and you're going to want to build your images a little slower and a little bit more detailed. Okay, so let's pull all this off and see what we got. Come on, Tom. Come on, Tom. Pull the tape. Pull the tape. Another thing I'd like to mention too, if you are going to be doing something over base coat like this, the sooner the better. Don't wait 48 hours or 72 hours or 2 months, unless you're using Speed's Hecker, to start airbrushing over base coat. Give it an hour, give it 2 hours, and then start taping on it or start airbrushing on it. Because the longer you wait, there is a window of opportunity for your adhesion for your paint. Let's take a second here to appreciate that sweet custom goodness, and we're back. Okay, so that is one thing that I do need to stress, because you can get pull-offs if you let that window of adhesion opportunity close. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of leafing. So I have a drop of yellow alpha enamel in with my gold leaf size glue, and I'm taking a Series 10 MAC dagger brush, and I'm going around the whole candy cane because I am going to copper and red leaf the outline of the candy cane, which turned out really cool. Even though I believe that I forgot to actually record me laying down the leaf. But that's okay, because I made it up by doing silver leaf on the ho ho no lettering. So that is my fault, though. I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, just simple lines going in between the red and the white, and then also all the way around the perimeter of the candy cane. And I'm also using the yellow in with the size just because it's easier to see. It's just a little bit easier to see. It gives it a little bit of a tint, a little bit of a flavor, so I know what's covered and everything. Because without it, you could check and see the gloss. As you could tell, it's you know, shiny, but that little bit of yellow under the lights, it helps me see it just a little bit better, and it doesn't really compromise the integrity of the size at all. So you could put different colors in it if you need to. You could put like I said, yellow into it or white into it, especially if you're doing something like a silver leaf or a gold leaf. It's okay to put the white or yellow size in. I'm sorry, white or yellow pinstripe paint in there. One Shot or Alpha or Ronin, either one of them works. But see, now you can see the leaf that I totally forgot to record laid down. Turned out really cool, turned out really nice, super clean. But now we're just going to go into colors. These are just candy colors, which is a transparent paint. Goes over everything, you can see right through it. And they're really fun to work with, actually, because you can make so many different colors with candies, and you can paint them over anything. You can see right through them, and they're super fun to work with. You can get super detailed with them. And right now, talking about candies, I'm really liking the word super, so that's super annoying. Now I'm moving in between some colors here, just changing things up. I don't want a whole bag of blue, I don't want a whole bag of green. Just going back and forth. Bring some red in there. Doing Santa's pants, Santa's bag. I added a little bit of black to the red to make a brick red color. And again, as you can see, I'm going over everything, and you can still see the highlight through it. And candies are great, they really are. Now I got the Stabilo here. This is the fun part. We're getting close. We're getting close. I am just kind of free-handing the lettering for the Ho Ho No with a grease pencil, Stabilo pencil. White, I'm just blocking it out, trying to make it kind of simple and make it kind of funny. The one thing you have to kind of pay attention to is where your lines are, you know, your vertical lines are, or, you know, slanted lines are. Make sure that they're all on the same degree of slant, and also try to make sure that your O's in this case are all the same or close to the same. You don't want stuff all crooked. Just, I mean, if it's off by 2 or 3 degrees, it doesn't look deliberate enough. It looks like a mistake. So if you are going to offset or mismatch your lettering, make sure you do it deliberately, not just off by a couple degrees, because then it just looks like a mess. So let's continue on. Again, I'm working from the top down so I can see where I'm going as I'm working down, so I can make sure that all my angles are the same. With this lettering quill that I'm using, these lettering quills I had made specific to my liking from Airbrush, so these are found on my website. What I want you to notice is I'm loading up the brush and I'm putting the entire body of that brush on the panel. That gives you a consistent line width. All these different brushes are made to a different design width. So I have 2 to my most common width lettering sizes. So this is the smaller of the 2. I have one that's a little bigger. Both made from the same Kazan squirrel hair. Beautiful brushes. Make sure you lay the body of that brush down on the panel so you get that consistent line width. If you don't, it'll be a little thin, a little thick, a little thin, a little thick, and it'll just kind of look messy. And I don't want you to have messy letters unless it, again, is deliberate. So now I got that whole thing. And watch how I'm turning the brush between my fingers. I'm rolling it between my fingers, keeping the body of that brush on the panel. And if you watch, we'll do the next O. I'll show you the next O. I'm actually kind of guiding the heel of the brush, or of the hairs, kind of thinking of that heel as the steering wheel. Where the heel of that brush is where the tip of the brush is going to finish up, you know. So where one starts, the other will finish. So I'm looking ahead of the letter, not behind the letter, because if you're looking behind the letter, there's already paint on it, so it's too late. Look ahead of yourself, get into whatever kind of angle you need to with your head to be able to see and nail your marks. All right, so here I am using, I tried using some aluminum leaf because I wanted something a little bit more vibrant, but I had a problem with the adhesion. Problem with the aluminum leaf is if you let it dry too much, the leaf won't stick. You almost have to put it on quickly after you lay your size down. I waited a little too long because I was digging it out. I was thinking silver leaf, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try some aluminum leaf, and I totally regretted it. And see how thick it is, and it's just not working out well. So I decided to clean it up, get rid of some of it, and then scrap it and go back to silver leaf, which is what I should have done the first time. So right here I'm just dusting it all off, kind of seeing how bad it is. I'm going to take some mineral spirits, and also too, a thing to note with mineral spirits and with a cheaper leaf like aluminum leaf is thicker than silver. So when you're trying to wipe off aluminum leaf, it doesn't come off very easy because the leaf doesn't let the mineral spirits go through the leaf to get to the size to be able to get wiped off. It sounds more complicated than it is because I'm just not having a good way of explaining this. But if it was silver leaf, if I was trying to wipe silver leaf off, the silver leaf's a little softer, so it's easier to wipe off with mineral spirits. Aluminum leaf, being that peasant metal, it doesn't wipe off, as easily. It doesn't get penetrated like silver does. So you could tell right away the difference with the silver leaf. Look how clean that is. Look how beautiful that is. I should have used it the first time. I just wasted a little bit of my time, but that's okay because it's perfect for this video. It was an oopsie, and I'm glad we can go through it together. So same thing. I'm going to take my mop. I'm going to dust it off. Press it down in there a little bit. And there were a couple spots that I broke through that I reapplied some silver before I burnished. But now I just have some velvet, and I'm just burnishing the velvet real light. I'm just going real light. See how I have that velvet kind of in a circle, and I'm just kind of dusting it. That's what you want. If you start pushing down into it, you're going to bury that leaf into the size. You don't want to do that. All right, now I got one of my detail brushes and some Alpha Black, McKeague Black. And we're just going to start crushing the outlines. I wanted to show you guys how I am rolling the tip of the detail brush in the black because I'm making this brush into a round. What's cool about this brush is you can make it a flat or you can make it a round depending on how you palette the brush. So if you go back and forth in one direction, you can actually chisel the brush out and kind of make it act as a lettering quill in essence. But while you palette, if you palette in the same direction and you roll the brush, you get a round brush. Super awesome the way this this brush turned out. It's a very what's the word I'm looking for here? Oh boy. Very multi-purpose. We'll go with multi-purpose. So again, I'm just crushing the details with the black, going hard outline, some details on the inside. I wanted to make this kind of cartoony, kind of fun. And notice also too how when I'm working the tip of the brush, I'm also pulling in the direction that I want the hairs to go. So you can make it kind of walk around the edge, but most times I'm pulling the brush in the same direction as I want the hairs to go. So there we go. Check this out down here. See how when the brush bends, I'm pulling it in the direction of the bend? That stops it from kind of like skipping out on you or skating out on you, and it keeps all your lines consistent. If you're trying to use it like a pencil where you're bringing it way out and back in and all that stuff, you can get some breaks in your line, and then you have to go back in there and do your lines a couple times to fill in some blanks and stuff like that. So I try to be kind of deliberate on where I'm pulling the brush as opposed to pushing the brush. It's almost like pushing a hose or pushing a rope. You can't push a hose, right? You can pull it, but you can't push it. Well, paintbrushes kind of act the same way. So keep pulling it, pull it in the direction that you want the hairs to end up in, and you won't ever have a problem. And that goes with scrolling and everything. All right, so I got a little bit of skin on my white one-shot here. So I pulled out my skin board, and I'm just taking a blade. I just wanted to show you guys kind of how I keep my skins. I don't really like to throw my skins out. I've had this skin board for a couple years now. And I just cut the skin out, and I place it on the board somewhere, and it's just kind of a growing piece of artwork. So there we go. Let some of that white drip off there for a minute, you know, waste not, as Captain Barbosa says. And big decisions right there. There we go. So I don't know. I just like to have fun with it, do something different, and not throw it in the bin. I mean, look at that already. I like it. All right, back to business. So I mixed up some gray. I have kind of a bit of a thing when it comes to double outlining. So I got some black, I got some white, reducing it just a smidge to increase the flow. And I'm reducing it with mineral spirits. It's just regular hardware store odorless mineral spirits. The one I'm using, the brand I'm using is Sunnyside. It doesn't have to be Sunnyside. Just any odorless mineral spirits works really well. And you can see how when I'm walking this brush around, I'm being really careful to how I'm pulling the brush. Again, you don't want your brush to fly out sideways on you if you're going sideways with a line. So be careful. You could cheat the system a little bit if you have your paint reduced a lot, or not a lot, but enough to be able to let the paint kind of fall off of the hairs. And I'm just taking some white and highlighting some areas just to kind of, bring a little punch back to the image itself. I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. It's the first YouTube video, and it's a big one. It's a real big one. So trying to tackle as many different things as we can. What I'm doing here is taking a Q-tip with a little bit of mineral spirits, because again, the mineral spirits also doesn't attack the black base coat. So that helps too. If you make a mistake on the black base coat, you're fine. But I was just getting rid of a couple little spots of silver that I didn't want there anymore. So that's just kind of precautionary measures. Just in case my line doesn't go out that far or something like that, I want to make sure that it covers. So got rid of those little areas and cleaned up the edges. Let's speed this up a little bit so we can keep it going. And you see how I'm, again, pulling with my direction. I'm not pushing as much. I'm pulling mostly. Sometimes you got to go around those corners just to stay on your line, but see how I moved that handle around? It's very important because that handle also, the handle angle kind of also dictates where that brush is going to go too. So just low lighting a couple areas now here. Took a little bit of black in the red. Just doing some undertones, making a little bit of a 3D. Add a little bit of, again, see how it got that little bit of undertone on the bottom left side of everything. There's the money shot with the yellow. All right, making a little bit of a brighter red there to get a brighter highlight color. I just put it next to the original red just to see, the contrast. And it's just enough to give it that little 3D punch. So just going on the upper right side of the letters, because I did the lower left side of the letters with my low lights, and you can see already the difference in the contrast between the two. So it's a really cool way to kind of 3Dify your letters and really bring out a different level of fun. to your letters. Now I'm going to go do some scrolling. So this is the scroll brush. These are up on my site also, tntcustompaint.com. I'll put it in the show notes. Everything's in there. Everything I use is in there. Trying to make like a one-stop shop for you guys, so you have everything you need in one location, so you know where to get it. It's available all the time, and all the support's here also. So if you ever have a question, email me and we will get you sorted, whether a email back with a description, or I'll do a TikTok video and just kind of show you how to do it that way. So I'm just riding the tip of this brush, just the tip. I'm trying to keep my handle as vertical as possible. Now I'm pushing down, laying the belly of that brush down and lightening it up and flicking it off right there at the end. So the big thing with scrolling is keeping the handle vertical and using the tip of the brush to make your circles. See how I'm just using just the tip, just the tip, just the tip. There you go. Because when you use the tip, the brush can roll on itself. If you push down too much, if you get too heavy on that belly, the brush hair can't roll on itself and it gets stuck. And then you just get these god-awful lines. So ride the tip, enjoy the ride, because you will get some super clean lines when you do it. So now what I'm doing is just mixing a little bit of yellow in with each stroke that I do, the next stroke. Again, I'm just building up kind of just to highlight a dagger strokes. Then I'll go back in and I'll highlight the daggers of the scrolls just to add a little bit of interest there. And watch when you see I plant the tip, see the angle of the brush. There we go. I start with an angle on the brush, kind of at a 45. I lay the belly down, and then I bring that angle back up to 90, and then I flick it off. So here back with the detail brush, and I'm just going to emphasize the no. Just going to kind of go around it with like a little bit of a electrostatic kind of style no, adding a little distress to the predicament that Popo Gijo got himself into. You know, one too many cookies at the last stop. And so I'm just walking the hair around. I got it a little over reduced so I can just let the paint fall off the hair and continue on with the lines. If you have thicker paint, the line won't last as long. The thinner the paint, you can drag a longer line. So if you're going around a longer area and you don't want to sit there and repalette all the time, thin the paint out just a little bit and let it just run off a little bit more. But you also have to be a little careful of how over reduced you want it, because the more reduced, the more it falls off the brush, it gets real runny. So there is a fine line between pushing that limit. And I added just a little bit more green here. So I got a darker green and a lighter green, bringing the emphasis of the no way out over here, just to add intensity to, again, the problem that old Saint Nick is having. And next time, Para Noel should probably eat like some gluten-free cookies. So here it is. I hope you really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun making it. If you guys have any questions, please email me, tom.tntcustompaint.com. Everything will be down in the show notes. And have a good one.